science fiction story. The names have been altered to protect two people's identity in this story, because both of them are currently in women's shelter at this present time, so I cannot, reveal the names and identity in this story. And this is a science fiction story called the Night Race, the name of the people who are the Aryans in this story, and the people what can be characters used in the story are two characters plus, another plus a few characters from I know of that are not words are going to be used, of course. So I'm going to go on with the story here, and I start the story off now. As remember, Mrs. and Mrs. Robertson. Well, as I'm heading toward to pick them up over at the place on over Women's, I'll pick them up. Next thing, I'll put a big, gigantic spacecraft. This race is called the Night Race. Very dark, and that. And they were going to do all kinds of bad experiments. They're going to turn us into one of them, so we couldn't go in daylight anymore. They're going to make us very sensitive to daylight and that. As a result, the story is going to be a good. As a result, I thought about it. I know what we can. I know I can do a flashlight trick and OG or not. So, I thought about it and realized the force field is very dark too. Everything is really dark in that ship. No light, no nothing. So I turned around and me and Mrs. Robertson and Josephine and Zach were all in a spacecraft. So we turned and Pat. So we turned around and we decided to take over the ship like I took over a gray ship. So as we decided to take over the ship, I thought, well, okay, we better sort the force field out first. So I looked around, and I found out I figured out how to sort it out. Of course, this time I had had something else on me. I had a aluminum tin foil from a candy bar. Stick of gum. What they do is stuck the aluminum tin foil into the force field, sorted it out the force field on the ship. It went up in the sour blue sparks and everything else and that, and I went down, and immediately that we turned the flash on, flooded the room, hit the guy with a flashlight in Moto G. A guy bursted in flames because he couldn't stand the light, and as we get out, after we started doing that, then finally we ended up, finally Sass took his phone with flashlight and bursted people's lights and flashlight headphones started bursting off. As we armed up, we started to attack one after another. But then I got to ship data core, and I found out how to do a ship ride. How to do is you take the atmosphere and evacuate the atmosphere into deep space. Evacuate the atmosphere, evacuate the air from the ship and the atmosphere, and evacuate the air into space, all for the place I'm in. So we got in one little area. We evacuated the air out of the whole entire ship, and as of course, all the night race were overcome by hypoxia, went to sleep, and as they went to sleep, I used to shred porter beams to teleport them into deep space and left them in the deep space where they belong, as we did. So, as we realized the ship was many light years now, 1,000 light years now, and this time I thought I better calculate the time differential in to exact time that we left. But sadly to say, this time around, when we turned the ship around, started to get back to Earth. As we headed back to Earth, then we got there, it was during the Second World War and Nazi Germany then, and we realized, holy shit, we are in the middle of the First World War, and time Indians were living in teepees, okay, and longhouses. Okay, so Um, then I realized you gotta do another shot. Then I realized we did it again. We recalculate time index for 2015 again, and what 1815 or 2015, you know. So, but unfortunately, you ended up year 1812. I couldn't figure out what's going on here. I think calculation right. You keep ending up in wrong times. I realized that's the year, same date and time of Battle of Stony Creek. So I thought, well, let's give the British a hand in Stony Creek and that. So we shoot down. The British were losing a battle in Stony Creek. I shoot down with artillery, and we pounded the hell out of the American cavalry. We slaughtered them left, right, and center. The British went in with their guns and slaughtered left, right, and center. They wondered where a big spaceship came from. They couldn't figure it out, and we just slaughtered the Americans. We saw them. We drove them down to back across the border. We just slaughtered them like crazy. And then I took off back in orbit again, and I realized that maybe this time I'm going to try. We did last night, sing-song step. I'm going to try that again, and this time I should be able to get back into this time. So I did a sing-song effect, and instead we finally did make it, but we made it a little bit, still a little off. We made it about 2 days after 3 days after it disappeared, a few days in the future. So that's close enough. I'm not trying any more effect that that time and time differentials were and that. I don't know how Mrs. and Mrs. Robertson taking this. Mrs. Robertson there wondering what to do. Mrs. Robertson had a anxiety attack on board spaceship. But I ended up, luckily their sick bay on board. We were able to treat them in the sick bay with very futuristic medicine, and basically in the sick bay made Mrs. Robertson anxiety free. Basically, no more anxiety. So happy about. And we couldn't figure. Then I got to figure this out, and I finally radioed the International Space Station, of course, and they said, "Are you up? Did you bag another one, Sammy?" Yes, I sure did. Do you want to take a look at it? Want me to dock here? Take a look at it first. So they said you cleared the dock here. So I docked at they walked on board the spaceship. The astronaut, and they were quite amazed at the ship and amazed at how we are flying these things. I said, "Oh my God, you guys are bagged another UFO. We got one already in the hands of SpaceX. They're going to deliver another one, and all of a sudden they get a hold. I got a hold of SpaceX on radio. SpaceX said, 'Are you going to land this one at Burke Science Building? Or are you going to land it in NASA, Cape Kennedy Space Center?' And I figured, no, I'm gonna land this one somewhere, but I'm gonna land it I'm gonna land it right on the front lawn of Burke Science Building. Want to come up and get it? You can. Or want me to land it? No, I'm gonna land it somewhere, not the Burke Science Building, but I'm gonna land it someplace. I'm gonna land it right in the parking lot of Pinky Lewis School, exactly where I'm gonna land this one, somewhere. When I land it where I could land it, when I land it in somewhere, but you have to land it where there's a lot of open space because there's a lot bigger ship than the other one was. It may not fit into that location that easy. May not be might terrorize the kids in the school. Unfortunately, they said, well, that's a good idea. So I had to then all of that. We went around. We found out the big piles. We decided at that point to this one. I decided to land at Mount Hope International Airport right in front of the WestJet hangar, whatever. So, but they said actually, they said why don't we land at a Canadian military base, CSB Trenton. Up in CFB and up in Trenton, Ontario. So, okay, so we left the International Space Station, and we landed and flew down, and then we landed there then we will get down to CFB Trenton, go down through onto CFB Trenton. We landed the space at CFB Trenton, and then all of a sudden there was photographer knew my nephew Kevin Daniel came on board and says to me, "My God, you are did you do this again? Bag another UFO?" Yes, we did. My God, Mrs. and Mrs. X didn't have any panic attack, and I fixed them in the sick bay for panic attack. Mr. Rob didn't have panic attack. And then finally we went in a debrief and all the press, media, CBC, and on top of that, and military honors and stuff. I was being like real full military honors. Even though I never got to military, by God, this is the second space that we bagged in 2 years and 3 years. And they have it actually, and my God, you are damn freaking good at this. They said they were starting to wonder how I got so good at flying these things. Well, and not easy enough to fly it when you could overpower 6 computers, and and all of a sudden they turned around and they went in. A scientist went inside. They looked at the star charts and they couldn't believe all the information. And several scientists looked at charts and charts galore. They not seen that charts everywhere. This has been everywhere in the galaxy, more places than previous one in bag. As a matter of fact, we were very happy about it. And all of a sudden, media came flooding in with the news trucks, and radio, TV, everything. And next thing you know, the newspaper photography, on cover of the Hampton Spectator, cover of every major newspaper. Sailing bags another UFO, and two other ladies three other ladies were saved for horrible treatments on Aryan planet. Sally did it again, saved Earth for another Aryan race and crippled their planet. And I was paraded in front of media, press, and all of a sudden, the United Nations handed a Medal of Honor around my neck, and then we boarded a highway coach. The highway coach brought me and Mrs. Robertson, dropped Miss Mary's place, and we were getting Mary's place. Everybody was pouring out Mary's place out, all ladies were, and they were just so happy at that point to see her happy. Mrs. Robert, you bagged another UFO? Yeah, help us. Shirrie here, we bagged that one, help these people, and all of a sudden, next thing you know, people were shaking hands, press, the media were there, taking photographs, and Mr. and Mrs. Robinson had to run inside Mary's place, afraid of media, of course, and they wanted to follow, they couldn't, and finally, we left there and went down back to Willow Place at that time, and media was swarming around me like flies, and me, Pat, Jacqueline, and Josephine was all highlighted into a move in the media. We were freaking on cover pages of every science fiction magazine out there, cover page affected CNN, and every media was there. And they were taking photos and stories, and we were so bombarded with media. Media died as the time went on. The media died away, and then we went to UN in New York, in Manhattan, and received the highest ever award of honor, the Canadian National Global Peacekeeping Award. Not for keeping the peace on Earth, for keeping the peace within the galaxy. And that was something that, ridding the Earth of very two dangerous races that would have invaded, and saving Earth. We were decorated with awards of heroism and honor in every way possible. And that time went on. We were so famous that later on we actually did. And that was sort of it in the story. As the time went on, we got so famous and that. And time went on, Mr. and Miss Robinson had an apartment immediately with all the money they got. They got into a very nice, beautiful luxury condo. As you know, as we were all over the front page, we were so famous that I ended up getting very wealthy from this. I ended up moving into a very large condo too. Bought a large condominium. I moved into one, and Miss Josephine moved into one, and every lady at Mary's Place moved into condos, and they couldn't believe what we done. And then finally, this concludes this science fiction story. I hope you enjoy it. The end. The end. Written and produced by Shirrie Eric Jackson.